Good morning, and thank you for registering for today's webinar, which is all about storytelling in the age of AI, how to turn your hotel's everyday moments into PR opportunities. Welcome. My name is Jane Pendlebury. I'm the CEO of HOSPA, the Hospitality Professionals Association. I'm not in my normal place for a webinar hosting, so I'm grateful for the team at Howden, the insurance company, not the kitchen fitters, for letting me use their space today. It's Wednesday, the 19th of March, 2026, and it's 11 a.m. I'm so pleased to be joined today by Pic PR. We've got Lloyd Hughes, who I've worked with for over 8 years, I think now. Pic have continued to deliver great results for the hospital team, so we're delighted to partner with them. We're due to be chatting for around 30 minutes today with time for questions. So please do ask questions throughout if anything pops into your mind. There's a Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. And if there's not enough time to answer the queries, we'll get back to you afterwards. Finally, before I hand over, the webinar is being recorded and we're happy to share the link afterwards. It'll also be available on our website and on YouTube as usual later this week or the beginning of next week. But welcome, Lloyd. Thank you for joining us. I am going to really hand over to you to start us off, and no doubt I'll interrupt you with your comment or question as you go through. And if the audience put any in, I will interrupt you with those as well.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for the kind introduction. So just to kick things off, I'll do a little bit of intro about my background and the agency I work for. Pic PR was founded nearly 14 years ago. I've been with the agency 12 years of that. My background is very much PR, but I've got a degree in creative writing, so it's led by the written word. And within the agency, I oversee the creative output, which I deem as the fun stuff, and I also deal with the crisis comms and messaging around that. So that's the bad stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting flip of the coin there for my day to day. But we're a hospitality PR specialist. We've worked with lots of, we're a generalist agency. We do a lot in the care sector and others as well, but we do have a rich vein of form within the hospitality industry. Having worked with lots and lots of hotels over the years. We're a team of 20 plus and we are award winning, which we like to shout about. There's approaching 70 wins and shortlistings in the last 5 years. Our key services as an agency are always on PR, creative campaigns, and visual storytelling. So, always on PR is focused on the natural news that's coming out of hotels or whatever, whoever our client happens to be. So, it's just keeping that constant streamline into the media. But alongside that, we do a big focus on our creative offering, which is building something to get you in the news effectively, creatively, and thinking differently in that approach. And then visual storytelling just ties into the fact that we have an in-house video and photography team who help build up the powerful visuals that support all the work that we do. A little bit of background there, but kicking straight into it. So, sort of things we're going to cover off today are looking at the earned first framework and how you can shift your mindset from what do we want to say to actually what's worth sharing. That's a key point we'll be looking at, as well as I've deemed it as mining for gold. So it's looking at some guidance around how you can pick out those key stories within your hotel, because you really do have a rich vein of gold to call upon. And then the human versus machine element is how imperfection in the age of AI is actually probably a good thing and does help you stand out from the sea of sameness. And then finally, there's a couple of case studies we'll be looking at as well. One in particular I'll go into detail on, but there's another couple that I'll touch on. Okay, so as touched upon then. So in that intro, the sea of sameness, I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Jane, if you ever go into LinkedIn now or in your social feeds, you'll just see everything looks really formulaic. I find myself, particularly, I'm not a massive LinkedIn user. Well, I am a LinkedIn user, but I don't post too much myself. But I'm always sort of in there and scrolling feeds and looking for interesting things. But it's even when it's people I know, I'll see something that it's clearly AI generated, but I find myself looking increasingly for the authenticity within it. So I know that's not them, that's not their voice. But I think I find myself doing that, and that can be applied to brands as well. But the problem with it, if a brand is just churning out the same sort of content that seems really polished, and they've obviously potentially drafted a post, click that polish post, that AI polish button, and then that just goes into the system on people's feeds, and it just looks like it lacks that authenticity. So I suppose it's where what can hotels do to really help themselves stand out, and that's where storytelling comes in. So we're talking about storytelling. It's not saying you need to be Shakespearean or the hotel Charles Dickens popping up. It's just really focusing on those moments of authenticity in your hotel, which you genuinely do have so much within the sector. And it's how can you pick those out and think, you know what, that's actually interesting, rather than reverting to just this constant feed of AI generated content.
It's so true. We see that in our awards entries as well, which makes you want to stop reading them when you can tell that they are AI generated. But I guess the risk here is that hotels want to say the right things. They want to put that message out there, but they've got to do it in a way that is, as you say, distinctive. It's got to be. It's no good if it's just a whole lot of gushing words.
That is part of the problem because I mean, I'm a writer, so that's my natural ability. So but it's not for plenty of people. So I do understand the temptation to go and I'll do it myself if I run something through AI because we're not anti-AI by any means. It's just trying to do the right thing to make it stand out and use it as a tool, but don't use it overwhelmingly. And you'll put something through AI and it just sounds really good, and it's easy to read it and go, "Oh, that sounds perfect. That's what I had in my mind." But the problem is, it is AI, and it is still evidence. So it's just probably just take. And you mentioned awards entries there, and that is something. Yeah, it's so easily done just to turn to AI, but it's you just need to edit it and keep chipping away at it and just add that real human element to it to do that. Because I mean, we see it in the PR world as journalists, their inboxes are flooded with AI, and they really do say like, they get 1,000 emails a day. And if somebody has used AI to write that email, they see it more clearly than anyone how prolific AI use is. So it is really sort of using it as a tool where needed, but not overly relying on it.
Cool.
Uh, and yeah, that's where the storytelling can come in to just help you stand out on that front. So yeah, storytelling is the antidote to AI fatigue, and it is that I find myself I just switch off if I do read something and I know it's AI generated. I will just whatever that happens to be, whether it's on TikTok if I'm watching a video that I just know it's AI, I just scroll through it. If it's not authentic, I don't do it. So the point of stories, if you're creating that level of feeling. You making something that people want to connect with and potentially remember and retell that. Now, the wonderful thing about hotels and other hospitality venues are the fact that you are full of, well, one, you've got a bricks and mortar, a physical property. You're in a physical location. You've got a wealth of staff and lived experiences within that, not just staff, but guests as well. And there's so much to call upon. So it's a case of just not overlooking that and falling into the trap of thinking, it's easy with AI. It is very easy. It just makes life much easier, but you do need to dig that little bit deeper to get that genuinely human connection. And I do think we're probably going to see more of that because again, you can just take it back to your personal approach to it. But I think we will see a bit of a backlash. AI is definitely here to stay. It's not going anywhere, but I think there will be more appreciation for human-led content, something that's definitely real. Yeah, and that's leaning into how we can find that. So, as a PR agency, our approach is always earned first thinking. We have everything that we put out there has to go through the lens of a journalist. So, in advertising and other parts of marketing, and when it's your owned media, you can just put out what you want effectively. No one's going to stop you. It might not be engaged with, but you can put out whatever you feel like. As PRs, we can't do that. If we do that, then we're not going to get any results. We need to sort of take that step back, look at what a journalist wants. And their main interest is what is of interest to my audience. They want to give something back that their audience can appreciate and engage with. That's how they generate the views that they need to support their operations. It needs to be interesting, effectively. And it's very easy as a brand to think, well, this is interesting. I'm interested in this. But your audience quite probably rather than possibly isn't. So you just need to reframe it. And you see it all the time. And I mean, it's kind of died off. It's not as popular as it once was, but it was, oh, we've done this amazing new website. We don't want to shout about it, but everyone has got a new website. Websites are happening all the time. That's just, it's great for me. And you do get that sense of satisfaction when you can publish it, but that's not really where the emphasis should be. So point is being that it's shifting the mindset of what do we want to shout about. And again, from a selling perspective, you're saying we want to shout about the fact we're selling beds this weekend and we've got space for more bookings, but actually you've got to think what is worth sharing. So the questions really around that to ask yourself is, why would anybody care, first and foremost? What makes this interesting beyond our own channels, and what gives this relevance, talkability, or emotional pull? And that is really where that PR thinking, that earn first thinking comes into its own, because it is that we are, as a team, as an agency, we are trained to effectively think like that. And the other major thing about earned first thinking is it translates the best across your channel. So if you look in the marketing model of a piece of paid, earned, shared, and owned, if you have an advert idea, it can look fantastic, but it's not going to get covered by a journalist. However, if you have a journalist idea, that can translate really well to an advert, to a social feed, to competition, to whatever it happens to be. So blogs, content on your website, specific packages. So you can really take that central thought process, that piece of thinking, and amplify it across all channels. So that's why we always hone in on that. So our offering as an agency isn't necessarily to say we're only doing PR, and that's where the creative campaigns come in. We package it up in a way that can get the most value from it, and you can use it really across all of your channels and gets that level of engagement. Because if it's good enough for a journalist to publish it, generally it's good enough to be used elsewhere.
Yeah, so as you put on your previous slide, you said there was a whole gold mine of data out there, but it's the question of finding something that is gonna be of interest to read to the person at the end. And I guess that is where your expertise comes in, rather than a hotel who might make the mistake of thinking a new website is important
Yeah,
because it has been such a big project for them.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Carry on.
Yeah, which I will touch upon how you can sort of what kind of thought process you can go down just to find those aspects. So actually, just so my next slide is this four-part test really. So this is just a question to ask yourself. So is it distinctive? What is different? What makes this new? Again, from a PR perspective, certainly news is the most important, and relevance, is it relevant? I mean, it might be interesting, but is it relevant? So it's just trying to realize that actually, whilst that is interesting, is it relevant to what we're trying to achieve? So it's a more strategic level of thinking than just seeing something, shouting about it because it seems interesting, and it might actually be, but how does this play into your wider marketing mix and your messaging? So that's very much important. And then, yeah, increasingly now, is it human? And that is the secret to PR success. It's always bringing in people where you can. Um, and again, I will sort of talk more on that, but you've got so many people in hotels who can bring expertise to the table that you might not even necessarily consider as PR worthy. You've got front of house teams, you've got your team, maintenance teams, team in the garden, you've got F&B team, bar staff. They can all tell individuals, they've all got levels of expertise that they can call upon, which you can weave into a narrative to get interest from an external audience. And then finally, is it shareable? That's the absolute gold. If somebody organically shares what you're putting out there, if it's that's I mean, that's sort of the lens beyond even the journalist. If a journalist publish it, but people are willing to share about it. We talk about the pub test in PR, which is if you're in the pub with your friends, would you be willing to talk about this story? And if not, is it actually interesting? So that's when you know you've struck something where you are keen to go about it. And I say, if I go home to tell my wife about it, that's a good marker that it's actually that's a good idea because I've told my wife about it. And if I don't tell her about it, is it a good idea? It's more my marker these days. It was the pub test, Jane, back in the day, but not so much these days, sadly.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, wife test. That sounds
Yeah,
good.
they'll call it that. That's it.
Mm.
A new phrase. And actually, this is a slight aside here, but it just underlines the importance of and thinking. So there was a series of webinars the other day, focused on GEO and its impact. So generative engine optimization as opposed to search. So what comes up in the AI overview? Now, apologies, I haven't cited the sources of these, but I can. I've got my email address at the end. So if anyone really wants to know more about this info, I can share details. But these were some top line stats that we picked out as particularly interesting and relevant. So nearly 60% of all consumer searches are zero click. So people will search for something, they'll get their result straight away, and then that's it. They won't explore any further. And a quarter of searches are abandoned if an AI summary exists. So I'm finding myself doing that more and more. I will have a query, and it's very handy having that search result at the top, and then that is I don't explore before. I will take it at face value, but it depends what it is. If it's something that's important to me, I'm spending a lot of money, then I'll do the investigation. But for a top line quick query, now the thing about hotels and hotel marketing is it is important, really. I don't off the cuff tend to I wouldn't just book a hotel without doing any investigation. I will have a look about it. So that is in hotels and hospitality venues' favor is the fact that people do explore you're offering more than just, it's not just a piece of information or just a low level shopping experience. It's actually something they want to do and generally enjoy. So you can benefit from that level of curiosity. But this is a particularly interesting stat here. So 90%, and actually I watched another webinar yesterday, but they said it was 94%. So I probably do need to cross-reference this, but regardless, the stat, it's a high stat that 90% of AI citations come from earned media, which means getting featured in the news has a huge impact in what comes up in the AI results, because they are curating authoritative voices and publications, high-level publications, the BBC, the Telegraph, the Times, they are authoritative. So it will know that there are standards that have to have been attained to get in those because they have to abide by the rules around journalism, what they can publish, and for them that's a trustworthy source. Interestingly, it also calls on a lot of Reddit, although that's dropped off significantly in the last year. So any things on Reddit, so that's something we've started doing, and increasingly is seed your stories into Reddit. So if you've got something going on a hotel, it's good to put it into Reddit because it gets picked up in AI. Although increasingly now it's looking more at LinkedIn actually, but specifically LinkedIn articles. So if you've got something interesting, whack it on LinkedIn, and that does help with getting found in AI. And also, if you do get some news coverage, share that coverage on your LinkedIn as well, because that really, some clients of ours are really good at that and some aren't so good, but we're just trying to encourage that more and more because again, it just feeds into what's coming out at the top of the AI search result. So yeah, AI cross-checks earned media, but your own media reinforces it. So I suppose that's playing into that. Put what you're doing on your channels, whether it's on your website, because yeah, I obviously don't know how the intricacies of LLMs work, but that's how they do it. They source material from various places, so it's just important to make sure you're doing that. And this was a particularly startling stat that 20% of Gen Z start their search journey on ChatGPT. I'm very much a Google man. I think I'm still. Am I a stick in the mud, Jane? I don't know, but Gen Z now just go straight into ChatGPT. That's their source of anything really. So that is probably likely to grow as time goes on. And then, yeah, finally, this point at the bottom that consumers are 3 to 6 times more likely to buy your product if referred by an LLM. And that's something I find myself doing. I look for best price. I'll go, oh, actually, I want to buy this. Let me just ask. And that's when I will go into ChatGPT, Gemini, happens to be, and say, can you find me the best place to buy that? So it does make a huge difference in that journey.
Yes, I think that number is only going to increase about starting your journey on a AI platform such as ChatGPT. But it's very dangerous as well. I had someone send me a list of independent hotels in London that they had got from ChatGPT, and knowing the hotels as I do, because that's been
Yeah.
my life's work effectively. I could see immediately that's not, it's got an independent name. It doesn't have Holiday Inn or Hilton in the title, but it's absolutely not an independent
Yeah.
hotel.
That is a
So it's a
hallucination.
place.
Yeah, that's something I say. You still cannot trust AI, and I suppose that is everything needs to be cross-referenced and always ask for its source. So whatever you put in there, just need to. And again, we will find that it's especially strict for us because if we're presenting something to we've done a bit of background research on something, we've used AI to help us. If we present that to a journalist as fact, they are really not going to be happy when they go to their editor or if it gets published because the amount of grief they get will be significantly amplified. And actually, that's another interesting point is there is there's fake AI experts are being published in sort of because journalists do what they can to source authentic commentary and expert voice, and they can click on a website and it seems as a legitimate business. They can click on LinkedIn and there seems to be a legitimate LinkedIn profile for this expert, but then it turns out they don't exist. So they're getting stricter and stricter on that. And actually, I was again at a podcast I was listening to the other day was somebody who oversees Reach PLC, one of the major publishers in the UK. They do Daily Express, Daily Mirror, lots of regional titles, and they now have a vetting process where they shout out to their team of, I think about 1,800, 1,400 journalists. And they say, has anybody worked with this agency before and can you vouch for them? So relationships within PR are getting
Yeah.
increasingly
Yeah.
important.
And it's just
Um,
reminding me of the story that Princess Wales, Catherine Princess Wales, put out, where she photoshopped the picture, and it's the same
oh
sort of thing.
yeah,
Picked up, wasn't it? And that was the scandal. So I guess that's a lesson for us all to learn. I
and
understand
it
Photoshop.
is a learning curve, isn't it? And it is just an evolving process. So it's just no one really knows how it's going to play out at the moment. You just have to kind of it's laying the tracks down in front of the trainers and just good going with it. Because again, you'll see brands put out AI generated adverts and they get so much backlash and hate from that. So it's just so I mean, I think it was a Coca-Cola advert recently where they put an entirely AI generated advert and they had to pull it down and apologize basically because everybody kicked off about it. So there are many pitfalls around AI, but that, yeah, the facts and just blindly trusting it is something
Mm,
definitely to always ask it to cite its sources and follow up on that.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so just going back to then the stores that you have in your hotel. And again, as mentioned, you just have loads on hand straight there, much more so than other brands. Online businesses just don't have the wealth that you can call upon. So you've got people that includes guests, but also your staff. And as I say, if it can be as anything as we're coming into spring now, the weather's getting nice. Do go and speak to your gardening team and ask them what flowers are coming in bloom. That can be some nice content to come out. And if you're a rural hotel, you've got some nice walking routes around you. You can package that up a little bit more by saying to your garden team, let's advise people on the flowers to spot. And that can just be a nice little additional thing. But again, that could translate in theory to a PR piece where they're looking for, because going back to the AI experts, if you're working, I'm not saying work with a PR agency, but if you are working with an agency who's trusted in the media and you have that, they do always come to us for requests for all sorts of obscure things. It's sometimes very eye-opening and interesting to see what the requests relate to. But that could be that it's coming into spring. They know their readers are going to be interested in things like that. So they might want a gardening expert, and that could be your gardening team. And that just amplifies your voice. Although on the surface, you might not think that's necessarily something that's not going to sell you hotel rooms, but actually it's showing the fact that you'll learn a really nice location. You've got a nice garden. So it all does help amplify your amenities and your services. And again, behind the scenes operations, heritage, some hotels have got fantastic history. Others not so much, but if you haven't got a fantastic history, you're probably in a place that does. So there's lots of things that you can call upon locally, what attractions are nearby, and sort of build that into your marketing. Again, partnerships, they can really amplify. Um, you can be working with local businesses, or if you're not, reach out to local businesses and just try and build those authentic connections, which can again tie across all channels. Um, and yeah, these unexpected details, I suppose, that's another interesting point. If there's something that happens in the hotel, just the quirkiness, the human nature, you can share it. And I suppose my mind's often, because increasingly it's sort of social first, is you can think, actually, this is good for my social channels. It doesn't necessarily translate to your PR side of things, but there's just so much you can talk about. And yeah, I was just thinking about video content is becoming now just going back my mind to this conversation around Reach PLC. They made a lot of redundancies recently, so journalists are sort of getting streamlined and trimmed down. But one thing they haven't made, and they've actually employed a further 100 video journalists. So if you are out there speaking to your teams, I would definitely advocate getting sort of video content and just bringing in that human element a little bit more.
Yeah, I love the title of your slide there, The Stories Hidden in Plain Sight. And I guess it must be quite common for hotels to overlook what could be really valuable because to them it's just there every single day.
I
Uh,
mean,
it must happen.
definitely, we're all guilty of that, I think, and that's especially you don't realize what you've got. I mean, I live in the Cotswolds, Jane. I don't appreciate the Cotswolds as I should. There's reams of tourists swarming around me, and I'm like, oh, this is just my local. It's that kind of thing. If it's on your
Yeah.
doorstep, you don't appreciate it. But that's it. Hotel, they are genuinely they're right there, and there's such a wealth of expertise and experiences within your team that you can call upon, which are of interest to the outside world.
And what you said there about video content, that since we started working with Pic, I think that's really helped us with what you've managed to capture through your video team from us. So we're really appreciative and recognise the value of that video content. A little snippet can be all it takes sometimes just to get somebody wanting to ask more questions.
Yep, and that's very much why we sort of built that into our offering because we appreciate the value. Right, I've got to rattle on. I think I'm just I'm noticing the time. It's sorry, yeah. So again, just digging a little deeper, a few more points on that. Really, it's people, it's place, history, your location, your design. If you've got a lovely design features there of interest to audiences as well, depending. Don't overdo it. Most people are interested in people, but actually, there are if you do have particular aspects of your hotel you want to talk about and shout about, then by all means do. Again, operation, backstage moments, and behavior. And actually, yeah, that final point there, encouraging UGC content. You've got guests who are going there, experiencing, enjoying, and they can really amplify things. So, influence is a growing segment of marketing that cross-reference into PR. So, we do a lot of work with influencers and bringing them along. But it's not just influencers, just ordinary people. If they're sharing, and I do it, if I go on my Facebook feed and I see somebody staying in a nice hotel, I'll have a little look and see, oh, that could be one to put on the list. So, encourage it as much as you can, really, for guests to share those things. And human, so this is largely covered anyway by what we've kind of been saying, but it is the fact that I find myself just digging for that authenticity now in stories. And if it's too polished, it just doesn't look real. So don't be afraid to put things out that aren't polished, really, is what I'm saying here. It's easy to fall into the brand trap. You want it to be slick and polished, but that can be increasingly off-putting for people. And if it just doesn't look human. So yeah, in hospitality, imperfection can actually signal humanity. So I think bear that in mind really when you're creating content. So a couple of examples here coming up. I'm going to play a video now. It's a couple of minutes long, but this will set the scene. So hopefully it plays smoothly. Let me know if not, Jane.
Where did all of our butterflies go? Following record low results from this year's nationwide big butterfly count, we are declaring a butterfly emergency.
The wildlife charity is declaring a national butterfly emergency today after it's done its annual count.
The butterfly resort, created with the help of local schools, has opened in Milton Keynes. The collection of uniquely decorated shelters designed by students is located at Forward House Hotel. Recent reports have highlighted that butterflies in the UK are in long-term decline, with numbers falling by a fifth since the 1970s. Now I'm here at Hallwood House Hotel, a beautiful hotel behind me, but what I'm really here to see is this butterfly resort, which they've had specially made in response to the news about declining butterfly population.
So, yeah, that's an overview of a campaign we put together for a hotel in Buckinghamshire, Horde House. It's about 20 minutes from Milton Keynes, rural setting, 30 acre, but they're really big on sustainability, and that's something they wanted to champion and shout about. And this idea came about. But so butterfly conservation, as you saw at the start of the clip there, announced that there have been a butterfly emergency. So they have the annual butterfly count, and it was at record lows. So we thought, oh, that's interesting. How can we amplify that? And the thing about PR is very few ideas are completely original. You normally build on things or put a fresh spin on something. And previously, there's been things like Hedgehog Hotel. I think that came up with one of the Times coverage. I was something B hotel or something like that in the hotel. So there are things that have been done on this theme before, but actually we thought, okay, this is timely, this is relevant, this is in the news now. What can we do to build on that? And we realized we could do it with a very small budget because you can get individual butterfly homes or houses on just on Amazon. You can get them for like 20 quid or something like that. So they're very cheap. And we just wanted to get that visual impact in. So we thought we got the timeliness and the relevance it ties in nicely to the sustainability element that Hallwood are really keen to push. So we ordered, I think it was 20 hotels, butterfly houses in total, which we then planned to build up into a replica of Hallwood House, to get that visual appeal. But to give it an extra layer of depth and meaning, we reached out to local schools, and again, that's all part of community building as well in PR. So it adds that because there's a mix of audiences, and this kind of taps into multiple ones here, but it helps forge those community connections as well. And we sent these butterfly houses to the schools, and they're absolutely brilliant. The return that came back, I was questioning. I was like, "Who are these children? These are exceptional." Like you can see a couple of examples there on the screen. There was one in particular, is incredible, but that one there, that is a real butterfly sat on. I think it's trying to find a mating partner rather than the home, but it's obviously that just could not be a better image from our perspective that we've seen a butterfly land on that hotel. So we were quick to capture that. But as part of this, we also reached out to Butterfly Conservation and got one of their spokespeople, a chap called Hugh Ellerton, to come in to add that expertise. So it wasn't a gimmick; it had that authenticity about it. So he came along to the hotel to see the butterfly setup, which actually initially it was going to be the hotel, but became a resort because their groundsman just went above and beyond. So he was tasked with building it this one weekend, and then he just went to town. He built a football pitch. There was like a playground. There was all sorts. In his mind, he was clear it was going to be to educate children and attract children and draw their attention. So he kind of flipped it slightly and called it the resort, but that I think amplified it and made it even better in the end. And then we just started. So we had this package that we had video, we had expert content off Hugh commenting on it. We sort of built other things around it as well. There was a colouring books and things that children could create that reflected the butterfly resort, and packaged it up. And then the media outreach around that, you could just see from the video. Then it got some great interest. It was on this morning. We had that's Chris Packham's daughter, funny enough, a stepdaughter, Megan McCubbin, who came along to Hallwood House and filmed with it. So we were really pleased when that came out. We had their local TV come along, BBC Look East, and then it published on a national level as well. Got lots of regional coverage. It got trade press coverage as well. And it just did really well. Ticked the boxes significantly. But one thing it also played into, actually, Hallwood had a partnership with a blue chip company, basically, who spent a lot of money on using them as a destination for their corporate things. And sustainability was a huge part of that, and that played into that and really helped build that appeal for them. So yeah, that was an exciting one to work on, and it just really underlines how just that it was something in the news, so it was reacting to it, and then just thinking and building pieces together just really created a standout campaign.
Brilliant.
And actually, yeah, just on the Times, so the Times came and reviewed. Not only did they see the Butterfly Hotel, they came and reviewed the hotel, and we've got a relationship now with that journalist in question who's coming out. She's coming out again in a couple of weeks to the hotel, so it just really helps those intros and cementing those media connections.
I'm sure the hotel were delighted. We're running through time here.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's great. Lovely story.
Sorry, I'm waffling too much. Yeah, a very quick look at. So this is a new opening. That's the perfect time to shout about a hotel. Obviously, if you've got a new opening, people are generally going to be interested in that. But this is a way of amplifying. So Kensington Hideaway in Kensington, funnily enough, is really lent into its local literacy connection. So it's a retreat. You'll go away. It's really calm, sort of sanctuary within the bustle of Kensington, and they've lent into local author connections, and then that's helped us just frame it from a PR perspective. It's the literary inspired boutique hotel, so that's perfect for us to get the ball rolling. And then we've got some really nice press day reviews lined up with the Daily Mail, the Sun, City M, and more in the coming weeks. And then another here is Hotel Gotham. So not all hotels are as quirky as Hotel Gotham. I appreciate that. But again, we really lent into that as part of the teaser. This is it says Hotel Gotham Manchester, very established, but Hotel Gotham Newcastle is a new hotel within the collection, and we just really lent into that. So I think our video team went up and captured some iconic local landmarks, and instead of the bat signal, we had the Gotham G floating around and so bouncing around just to really help tease things in. And it was just building in that beyond the standard. Actually, it's just got a hotel opening. There's hotels opening all the time. It's we just sort of built beyond that. And it was come out last week. I think it was the 50 best places to stay in the UK for 2026, and the Hotel Gotham was in those following a review that we'd secured with the Times. The Telegraph had been, and it could just really help you stand out and get journalists coming along. Yeah, so again, this slide really probably touches on things that we've already talked about, how you can use PR as a focal point for broader marketing. So if you've got that negative earned thinking at the heart of it, you can just amplify that and send it across channels. The butterfly one is a perfect example of that. You can have a butterfly themed afternoon tea. You could rename, they didn't do this, but you could rename your suites temporarily for the most endangered butterflies. There's all sorts of things you could do just to amplify that. And then when you're sharing about it, I mean, the one point there is sales messaging, and it has really helped with that corporate partnership. So use it where you can. So again, how PR-led comms can drive booking. So just that commercial element. So it drives memorability. Memorability drives preference. Preference improves action. So a strong story gives guests a reason to choose one hotel over another. And it isn't just the coverage, it's distinctiveness, which drives consideration and brand affinity. So the more you seek out of a hotel that resonates with you, the more likely you are to build that connection on an emotional level and think, you know what, I want to go and stay there. I want to go and explore that. And that can just really help with that, especially when it comes to experiences and people wanting to experience new things. What time are we on, Jane? So this is a quick weekly checklist that I put together to help you, if you're a hotelier or in the hospitality sector, to look at what you can do to find these stories. So it's just something you can ask yourself each week. So what happened this week that only happened here? Is there anything distinctive that stands out? It could be a car meet that came along or anything like you could have some fancy classic cars on the drive or anything like that. And what did a guest respond to emotionally? Is there anything in there that you can really plan? Could there be a major celebrate or a guest that's doing something differently, that there's a news hook there? In the past, we've had people who used to work in the hotels coming back there, or there could be people returning to their wedding destination and things like that. There's those human stories that you can really tap into if you look into it. And who in the team has a story worth telling? Again, just making sure you use your team to best effect and pray with those. And then, and what are we doing that feels human, distinctive, or timely? That timeliness is really important, I think, from a news perspective. And finally, what would someone outside the business genuinely care about? Would they care about this or not? And if not, maybe rethink it.
Fantastic. That's great. We've got lots of comments here, not so much questions, a couple of questions, but then you've actually answered the questions in running through your slides. So lots of comments about thank you for the checklist. That was well received. That's just popped in. And lots of comments about keeping the human touch, and hospitality more than any other sector should be able to deliver this. So that's I don't think we've got any specific questions, but obviously if people do have questions afterwards, then please do send them over.
I would say that's a key takeaway though. Hospitality is all about people, isn't it? You've probably got the easiest gig going to do that storytelling. It's like it's a people focused industry. So just don't forget that. Just concentrate on, you might want to sell beds, you might want to get this package, but actually let's look at the stories and around the human element and really amplify that.
And your comment about renaming suites potentially, or bedrooms. I was at Baker Street yesterday and it was renamed Bakery Street because they were celebrating Warburtons, and there was the yellow line was referred to as the buttery yellow line and things like that. So
yeah, nice. But exactly that kind of just taking what you've already got and just thinking, how can we reframe this or repurpose it for PR ideas? And then sorry, my final slide there is obviously my email address. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop me a line, and I will respond. And also, if anybody watching is like, you know what, I'd like some free ideas for my hotel, because we have a creative process and I oversee, so we have a couple of sessions a week where we put clients in and we bounce around ideas to how we can amplify that. So I'm happy to do some free ideas on that. If somebody wants to think, what can we do for our hotel, and wants to sound us out, by all means ask us, and we'll do a session on your property.
Well, that's really generous. Thank you, Lloyd. And thank you, Lloyd, for all of that. Some really sage words and great tips, and interesting stories shared this morning. So thank you. And thank you all for listening as well and putting your comments in there. As always, as I always say, if you need any formal advice, then please do approach your professional advisor or come to me at Hosper for a referral. And if you didn't catch Lloyd's details there, obviously I can introduce you directly to Lloyd and the team at Pic PR as well. Please do take a look at hosper.org for upcoming events. We've got a number of webinars scheduled. The next one will be on April the 14th, where we're talking about sustainability in the current times and how to make progress in a climate of uncertainty. And on the 28th of April, we're talking about tips and trunks and AI scheduling for the teams internally, which should also be useful and informative. As a team, we'll be at Tech 360, and I'm moderating a panel on Monday in the early afternoon with some key industry figures plotting the career paths of hospitality technology experts. And then the next big one is our annual Great Green Balloon Debate, which will be on the 12th of May and full of insightful knowledge. And wherever you are on your ESG journey, I guarantee you'll learn something. So please do register. But thank you again so much for your time today, for listening. And thank you, Lloyd, very much for that useful information. It was very good. So thanks all and goodbye, everyone.